My city is sinking, and there are no rafts to cling to. My desperation does not burst inside of me with the same vigor as before, and therefore I cannot fight for my life. I can only say, my city is sinking. My dinner plates from the last few days are stacked next to me, and I cannot move to wash them, nor these yellowing sheets. My neighbors are mad at me that I have stolen all of their forks and Tupperware, and just like them, I fear that I will starve them as much as I starved myself. I do not know what I owe you. I do not know who is this fighter everyone tells me that I have to be. I do not know how to say that I feel like I am a fraud, because I know what I am, and I know that it is not that completely. Protection wills my body into complacency. Then the urgency to live my life the way I ought to live it becomes a despondent twinkling thing, a thing that orbits my sun every few hundred centuries. It took me about 3 months to move my bed and face the window. I had to move states twice for that dream to become a reality. Every night, for weeks on end, I'd be filled with disappointment every morning before I could even speak. The greeting image of tall, white walls first thing in the cracking of day grew on me too thick, like calluses at the edge of my feet. The thick white suffocates what sits beneath, a person that I had no will to tend to. Lately, the corners of my shoes cannot snuggle correctly into the curves of my feet. No one tells you what to do when you've outgrown a fresh pair of shoes, particularly the ones you've only bought only a month ago. My pain swells as my back is hunching over to bend along the weight it demands of its bearer. I can't help but ferment in the cold air this pain ceaselessly pricks me with. These white walls inspire the grotesque shiver of reality I sometimes desperately needed to harden with for my life to be lived properly. If I was a plant, I'd be one of the extremophiles, likely the forgotten cousin in an untouchable biome, a conscious living thing that could not only stand the seemingly invincible attitudes of fate, the universe, and unseen puppeteers and the like, but also one who craves it. If I was a plant, my caretaker was not one of the kinder ones. I want my leaves to be pretty. I don't know if they are pretty, but I know that they are stiff, and I know they are strong. They inevitably linger under the blast of a million hot suns or even in the abandonment of even a wisp of heated whisper. I am addicted to tumbling along the commotions of my ricocheting pain because I do not know any other way to move, to grow, to be a plant. I can no longer live this way, I told myself one night, overcome by this new spirit, one who comes and goes as she pleases. I realized there would be no one who would be as honest with me as I hoped. Nobody would tell me how much I have strayed from my path and reflect back to me the unfiltered pores and diluted mass of the someone I've chiseled my flawed edges and muted my gray tones to morph into. I needed to sink my teeth into something raw and human, a flesh that felt clean and dirty in the way that I was used to feeling clean and dirty. I needed to wake up in my person again. My bad habits have bled into my muscles far deeper than my hands can pry. But my fingers are heavy with a rabid hunger. They lurch and leap with the devastating prowess of a starving animal that cannot see the gore behind a feastful murder. They cannot see that the bellows of the octave far below an internal mumbling shriek, muffled by all things heavy, forgotten, and happily unseen, are stripped away, kind things that demand to be heard instead. Listen to my hunger. Do not plunge your fingers into my gaping holes and pried lips. I wish I could say to myself, and more importantly, wish I could hear. When I went to New York, a fimble inkling grew unmentioned in my foot. As I waded through shallow waters, I could not quarrel with this recollection on how hard I had to thrust my ankles through the thick, murky seas growing at their ends. There were many things left undone and unfinished at their seams back in my life, in whatever capacity I owed to such neglected children, growing or unborn things of mine. I could not stand to even nurture their recognition. At least that's what I told myself every day as these ghosts adopted hungrier, deeper limbs to mend, crack, and steal however they chose. As God would watch flesh shed into flesh, they say he can only watch. In the Titanic movie, the orchestra continues to sit in their chairs, dedicate themselves to their strings and bows, and continue to play their music as the ship sunk. I vividly remember the scene since I was a child, the odd slanted picture overtaking the screen, which enraptured me for 3 straight hours, stuck densely to my mind. Better than most things, the scene lingered on for indescribable reasons. However, instead of owing it to the grandiose nature of a whispering, beautiful metaphor in the shot, I can only simply say that the director's choice of showing the boat's inclining angle as the audience's eye, the camera, stayed complacently still, carves a unique divot in my mind. I can break my words down, I can paint the class disparities, I can fit into the paper. I cannot suspend the grandiose weight of what it must feel to demand to play. But I cannot charge it to my account as something capable of capturing the stroke to paint. My best friend said I was a literary genius as a child. I wonder what that meant for me now. Had time caressed the hard ridges of my soul's fracking that I should already consider my career in shambles? There was nothing else to sit there and convince me of the opposite. Not a soul, not a life. Perhaps a view or two, but never the whole world. I don't know when I'd like to become famous. Perhaps when I'm older. I feel like my youth wouldn't ripen with enough zest for a lifetime. Fame appeared to require a still life, one where you cannot be caught in the company besides that of your market and their investing companions. A life to sell, a life to exist on. Something bemoaned my stomach once I realized how quietly a ritualistic summoning this odd nature to ask for the attention of the world silently asked me to oblige. I could not hand off my demise that easily. I had to poke and prod at the idea of what it's meant to be as a grown adult. Maybe I had to hold secret meetings with myself during the time where my impending doom of how much I've wasted, how many things await my call. I was glad some people felt bold enough to double text. The oddest part was how comfortable relationships and friendships could really be once you say no. Granted, my family, a huge roadblock in my stance behind the longevity of my courage, was facing the wrath of what I ought to be facing with them. A hurricane. Instead, I drink iced lukewarm beer, served in communal college dorm wine glasses, as they question what lingering thread of reasonability and logic their situation has adorned them with. I was becoming a bit short-sighted. This high adventure wouldn't feel as rewarding nor treacherous without her call. They asked poets what would be their way to say the line, "I am whole again." What would you do if I said, "Call my mom again"? Or maybe when I call my mom. If I call my mom. I crash into you as softly as the waves knock on our lighthouse doors. I live within you, and I cannot help but tremble when you remind me of all that I cannot do, all that I cannot easily admit. I cry. I used to be a crier before they took my shield, before they told me it wasn't right to cry. My age had long surpassed my skin to carry those dead flesh cells. And yet.
I think speaking right now, I've lost my voice. It's like 2 minutes. Fucking. It's just life has knocked me so far off my feet that somehow naivety